one of my favorite expressions, which I say all the time, and I actually sign off on all my internal communications with, is dare to be great. And what I mean by that is, life is too short to be mediocre, and for the same nickel, why don't you try to be extraordinary?
It's time! Work, play, evolve!
I want to connect the listeners to the best of the best. Welcome to the Evolve Broker Podcast. I am your host, Pat Costello, the co-founder and principal at Evolve MGA. Our mission for the podcast is to bring the insurance industry the best of the best. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with the CEO of one of the largest and fastest growing insurance agencies in the United States. My guest today is Ricky Spiro, the CEO of the Hilb Group. For 2021, Insurance Journal lists the Hilb Group at number 13 on the list of largest insurance agencies in the US, with more than $260 million in P&C revenue. As of July, they've completed more than 100 acquisitions. They have over 100 offices and over 1,500 employees in 21 states. Ricky graduated from Princeton University, began his career at First Boston Corporation. Ricky was an investment banker specializing in advising the insurance industry on mergers and acquisitions, initial public offerings, and equity and debt financing. He went on to be an executive vice president and the CFO of Chubb before joining Hilb. We discussed Ricky's personal background, his journey to become the CEO of Hilb, his strategies for leadership, company culture, the future of Hilb, and advice for new employees. This episode of the podcast is sponsored by Varuna. Varuna is the agency management system of the future, built on the #1 customer relationship management tool in the world, Salesforce. Varuna allows you to customize your system, workflows, reports, and dashboards in minutes, and allows you to gain actionable insights about your business in real time, letting you use this intelligence to grow your business in multiples. Varuna allows you to know your business so that you can grow your business. Please visit varuna.com to learn more. Without further ado, here is Ricky. Ricky, welcome to the Evolve Broker Podcast.
Thank you, Pat. I am happy to be here.
Super excited to chat with you today. I want to go through a few things. I want to go through, I would just love to get to know you better on a personal level. I'd love to chat about your journey to become the CEO of the Hilb Group. And then I'd love to get your thoughts on the way you see Hilb growing in the future and the way you see Hilb now. So if that's okay, we can dive in.
Sounds good.
Okay, cool. Are you based in Richmond, Virginia?
I am not, actually. So the company is headquartered in Richmond, Virginia, and we have 100 offices in 22 states throughout the country. I'm actually based in New York, which is where I was born and bred. And I commute down to Richmond as needed and get on airplanes and go visit our offices and talk to future acquisition candidates.
Cool. What part of New York did you grow up in?
So I was born in Brooklyn, New York. I grew up on Long Island, and I currently live up in Westchester County, just north of New York City, after spending a few years in New York City itself. So I haven't traveled far.
Tell me about your childhood relationship with your parents. Did you have any siblings? Anything like that would be very interesting to learn about. Sure,
happy to. A great relationship with my parents. Very modest background growing up. Mom was a former school teacher. My father was actually a butcher, and I spent a number of summers working with him in his shop. I was not allowed to touch a knife, however. No butchering allowed, but I was allowed to unload trucks, make deliveries, and do a bunch of office work, and taught me the value of hard work. My dad actually got to work sometimes at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning to get his deliveries from the meat purveyors out in the Midwest when they would come into New York City. I have one sibling, a sister, a couple of years older than me. She still lives on Long Island. I am married now. I have 3 children of my own. I have 2 stepchildren. I have a daughter-in-law and a fiance and a whole bunch of significant others running around.
Wow, that's awesome. So did you grow up a New York Yankees fan?
I root for all of the New York professional sports teams that have not won a championship in more than 35 years. So I'm a New York Mets fan, a New York Jets fan, a New York Knicks fan, and a New York Islanders fan.
Oh man, very impressive. Very impressive there.
I don't know about impressive. What it is painful. and it's been even more painful for my children who have inherited all of my sports teams and they have never seen a championship, but we're hopeful.
I love the loyalty. I actually, we have a guy on our team who's a New Jersey guy. He's one of our senior underwriters, and he is a diehard Jets fan, Knicks fan. And I went to Loyola Marymount University.
Okay.
I'm not sure if you're familiar with LMU's background, but back in the 90s, we had a guy named Hank Gathers and a guy named Bo Kimball that kind of led us into the NCAA tournament. Hank Gathers actually died on the court from a heart issue, and obviously it was devastating, but the resulting lawsuit totally crippled our basketball program. But this guy on our team, he went to LMU as well, and so it's like with the New York sports teams that he's rooting for, along with LMU, LMU falls in that same category of we're hoping for the time when the success will return.
Good luck. I am actually a big basketball fan. In fact, my senior thesis in college was written on the topic of the economics of racial discrimination in professional basketball.
Wow. Super interesting. How do you feel about the Knicks' chances this year, 2021, 2022?
We are hopeful. My daughter actually was at the game last night, and fortunately they won, but she was also at the Jets game on Sunday, and they didn't win that one. I think we have a good team. We have a great coach, and we got off to a pretty good start. We've slowed down a little bit over the last few games, but there's always eternal hope when you're a sports fan, particularly at the beginning of the season. So fingers crossed.
I saw a video of Knicks fans going wild after a few of the early wins, and I myself am a Warriors fan, and we've been blessed with some success in the last decade, and we're off to a strong start. So
you are. So I wish you well, and when you get Klay Thompson back, you'll even have some more firepower.
Exactly. Did you play any sports growing up?
I did. I was a basketball player. My father was 6'5", believe it or not, and played both college basketball and baseball. Huh. I, on the other hand, am not 6'5". I'm barely 6 foot, and I am what happens when genetics get in the way. So I played a lot of basketball growing up, and my father used to dunk on me when I was a kid. So that left a mark, but it's toughened me up a little bit.
Talk about some learning lessons.
Absolutely.
I'm in the same boat. Basketball is definitely my favorite sport growing up, and I played in high school, but I'm guessing I'm probably around the same height as you. I'm like 5'11" and 3/4. So, the height I was not blessed with, and but still a huge fan. And I'll have to shoot you a text when the Warriors are playing the Knicks. See what happens this year.
We can make a friendly wager.
That sounds great, Ricky. I'm in for that. So, Ricky, you went to Princeton, and out of Princeton, you went into investment banking. Did you know at Princeton that you wanted to go into the investment banking industry?
Yes and no. There was a stop in between that you may not be aware of, which is, so I graduated from Princeton with a degree in economics. I went to law school right out of college. I went to Columbia University in New York City and realized very early on that I was not made to be a lawyer or to be in law school. And I actually left law school a few months in before I ever took a final exam and went straight to Wall Street after that. So I was going to be a lawyer at one point and changed my mind, which shows you that, not every career is a straight path. You do take some twists and turns occasionally.
Was there anything specific about the legal route that pushed you away from it?
I actually always wanted to go either to Wall Street or into business, and I was going to law school to use the law degree to help me do that. And it just wasn't worth it to me to spend 3 years going through law school to get to a place I could get to without doing that. So I had interviewed before I went to law school for Wall Street jobs, had a number of opportunities. Decided to go to law school. And then when I decided to leave law school, I was able to quickly find a job at what was then called the First Boston Corporation, now Credit Suisse. And I had a great experience. I spent 23 years on Wall Street. So I learned a lot there. I learned a lot about, how you think about business, how you think about markets, how you think about people, because I managed people, and it's never easy when we do this a lot in the insurance brokerage business too. You often take your best investment bankers or your best producers and you put them in charge of people without giving them any training in how to manage people. But I had the opportunity to learn a lot in a very short period of time. I was, blessed that I was able to progress pretty quickly. I never had to go back to business school. So I ended up making partner or managing director at a relatively young age, one of the earliest in the investment bank at that time. And I had a lot of fun doing it.
You got into the investment banking world, and it sounds like you focused in the investment banking world specifically on the insurance industry. Was there something that attracted you to the insurance industry within investment banking, M&A, IPOs, et cetera?
Yeah, I wish I could say yes. It was by happenstance. So when I first started on Wall Street, I started in what was then known as the Real Estate Finance Group. And as it turned out, I was doing work mainly with insurance companies with their commercial mortgage portfolios and their real estate portfolios. And one of the guys I was working for at the time switched over into the insurance investment banking practice and asked me to go with them after a couple of years. And next thing you know, I'm an insurance expert, and I did that for the next 21 years.
You mentioned that you were managing director at the First Boston Corporation and Citigroup. What helped you climb the ranks of those companies to put yourself in a leadership position?
That's a good question. I mean, I think there's a lot of things. And in my case, I've spent a lot of time thinking about, my career and how I got to where I am. One of the things I actually did at Citigroup was, in addition to being an investment banker by day, I also was very involved in recruiting at both the undergraduate and the business school level, and went to a number of college campuses and business schools and made the recruiting pitch for Citigroup and their investment bank. I think in my case, it was a couple things. One, I mentioned earlier, hard work. There are a lot of really smart people in this world, and you hear that a lot. And, you see it in professional sports as well, right? That people have a lot of talent when you get to the NBA. How does somebody who's always been so talented not make it and others make it? Part of it is you got to put in the effort, right? You got to work hard and try to outwork people because, I did well in school and I went to Princeton and all of that. But there's always somebody who's smarter than you and knows more than you. And how do you distinguish yourself? You outwork them. So that was part of it. Part of it was, I think one of my biggest strengths is that I know my strengths and weaknesses. I know what I'm good at. I know what I'm not good at. And if I'm not good at something, I'm not afraid to get help or ask questions or surround myself with people who are good at the things that I am not. And I think a lot of people, as they're going in their career and moving up the so-called corporate ladder, they're afraid to show any weakness or any uncertainty. And that sometimes comes back to bite you because you end up making mistakes because you're afraid to ask a question, you're afraid to show a weakness or a vulnerability. I wasn't like that. I knew what I was good at. I knew what I wasn't good at, and I stuck to that. And then lastly, I would say I did things true to myself. I wasn't going to take shortcuts. I wasn't going to do things that would either put me or my firm or my colleagues in any sort of harm's way. I was told early on in my career that, it only takes a second or one bad decision to lose your reputation, and it takes a lifetime to get it back. And those are words that I always live by. So I was very careful to make sure that throughout my career, I continued to do the things that, I felt proud about, knew that I was doing the right thing. And if I was successful, if I won a piece of business, if I got that IPO or I got that merger done, fantastic. If I didn't, I wasn't going to change the way I did things to try to do that.
Mm-hmm. You had the work ethic. You were able to show vulnerability. If you were to list some of your strengths, what strengths would you say carried you through to be successful in the positions that you're put in?
In addition to the couple you just highlighted, one is, I do think it's important that you have a team around you that has strong morale and a culture. And I was almost maniacally focused on making sure that my team was motivated, that they knew that how important they were, that the time was put in to help them with their career development. That really helps because then people all work together and work in one direction. And we're doing the same thing at the Hilb Group as well in terms of getting everybody to work together, which isn't necessarily easy. When you've gone through over 120 acquisitions over the past 10 years, which we could talk about more of that in a minute. I was good at what I did. I was good in front of clients. I was good in, a boardroom. I was able to get deals done. I was able to parse through, difficult issues and try to reach compromise when needed. But again, a lot of people have a lot of really good skills. I stuck with it and worked hard at it. And fortunately, it all worked out great.
I'm really interested in your thoughts on company culture and specifically for Hilb. But before we get there, in terms of your career trajectory, you left the investment banking world and you went to Chubb as an executive vice president and the CFO. What were the deciding factors that made you leave the investment banking world and go into the insurance carrier world?
A few things. Taking a step back, when I did that, which was in 2008, if you remember, that was sort of right in the middle of what was then the financial crisis. And so, the world was in a difficult place. Investment banking, in my view, wasn't as much fun as it had been over the first 23 years of my life, given everything going on in the environment, increased regulation, capital trouble, markets going haywire, et cetera. So, I'd always thought that, if I were ever to leave investment banking, it would be to go to work for one of my clients. And Chubb had been a long-term client of mine. I had spent a lot of time with them over the years, done a lot of transactions with them. And it just happened to be that at that exact moment, my predecessor as CFO at Chubb was retiring. And so they just started a search for a new CFO and reached out to me, given my relationship with the company. And, one thing led to another. And fortunately, they offered me the opportunity to join as CFO. And I decided it was the right time to make a career switch. Nothing really pushed me in that direction other than, I've always thought about doing it. It's kind of hard to turn down the CFO job at Chubb, which, if you're going to get a CFO job in the insurance underwriting business, it's as good a place as any.
Oh, that's a big job. It's a big job for sure. Job.
They had a terrific team of people, and it was the right fit for me. And, the only negative was joining as a CFO right in the middle of a financial crisis is certainly baptism by fire.
I'm sure. I can only imagine. And Ricky, there's a chance that we may have crossed paths. I started my career at Ace, and obviously Ace was Ace acquired Chubb and then took Chubb's name. And so I was there 2013, 2014, 2015, I believe. So there's a shot if you're ever walking around the Market Street office in San Francisco that we cross paths. I'm not sure if you've ever made any trips out there.
I did, actually, several. And it's possible that we did. It is a small world in insurance and in anything else.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Well, what attracted you to leave the carrier side of things and move to the retail brokerage side of things as the CEO of Hilb?
Well, as you know, because you mentioned it and you worked at Ace, when Ace and Chubb got together and the transaction was, completed in January of 2016, I had already made a decision to leave the company after a few months after that in order to help with the transition. So I stayed on until about April of 2016. And then I actually retired, believe it or not. For about 18 months. And I like to say I retired because I tried to figure out what I wanted to be when I grew up. Fortunately, I was in a position where I was able to do that. And I took the next, 18 months or so to figure out what I wanted to do. And what I decided was number one, I didn't want to work at a big company anymore. I had spent my entire career at places like Chubb and Citigroup and Credit Suisse. And when you're one of hundreds of thousands of employees, it's much harder to feel that you're making a difference and having an impact. I always wanted to try something more entrepreneurial, never having really done that before. And so I was thinking about what I wanted to do. And I was put in touch with the then private equity partner of the Hilb Group, Avery Partners up in Boston. And we just got talking about actually other things, insurance related. And then, they had asked me about the Hilb Group, given my background, both as an M&A investment banker, as well as working at a large company and knowing what needs to be done as a company grows. And, they offered me the opportunity to come on board as CEO. And I said, you know what? I always wanted to be a CEO. I wish I were the CEO of Chubb, but, they went in a different direction. And I jumped at the opportunity and came on board in September of 2017.
It's funny that you say that, because those are some of the exact same reasons that I left Chubb to start Evolve, to have a little bit more control over my own destiny, to feel like I'm having more of an impact, to create and shape company culture, and really to see the fruits of my labor. Once I was putting in the work, see the results of the effort that I was putting in. So you are the CEO of Hilb now. And we talked, it's obviously like a lot of learning lessons for anybody listening in terms of your journey to get there. The specific things that you did, or the traits that you had to kind of push you to the top of the pack. When we talk about Hilb now, how would you describe Hilb's company culture?
I would say it's a work in progress. Our theme, if you will, or our mantra is one company, one team, one goal. But as I mentioned earlier, we've done over 120 acquisitions. And, when you have 120 different businesses that are coming together and we're making acquisitions on an almost weekly basis, it seems lately, it is very hard to create a singular culture. So what we're trying to do is create a culture where everyone understands that what we're trying to achieve, what we're trying to accomplish, what's important to the organization, what are our core values, where we're going, and what the objectives are. At the same time, I don't want to lose the individual cultures of the companies or the agencies that we've acquired, because there's a reason why they have been successful in their local markets for so many years. And in some cases, we've acquired agencies that have been in business for more than 100 years. And I don't want to lose that. So we're trying to balance a combination of what we're trying to do at the Hilb Group, but at the same time, make sure that our agency partners who we've acquired continue to operate their business and maintain some of the aspects of their culture that have made them successful.
Is there an ideal demographic of insurance agency that you would be looking to acquire?
I would say in terms of the demographic, what we are most focused on is we're looking to acquire talented leadership and management teams. And more importantly than that, we want those management teams to share a vision that they want to continue to grow over time and grow faster with us than they can on their own. So if you want to sell your agency and retire and go fishing or go play golf, we're not the right acquirer for you. If you want to become part of a larger company that's focused on growth and focused on creating a great company over time that's sustainable no matter what the environment we're in. So, we're not just growing through acquisition. We're very focused on organic growth as well, and on our operations and systems and using technology and doing all that. Probably for a company our size, we're more focused on those sorts of things than I think a number of our competitors. So our ideal candidate for an acquisition is somebody who believes in what we believe in and understands that as part of the Hilb Group, they're going to grow faster, make more money, and be more successful than they would be on their own, and that they want to continue to contribute to that growth.
I asked that question because we have a good amount of agency owners that are listening to this, and I'm sure they would be curious about what it would be like to be part of the Hilb Group and part of that company culture.
Yeah, Pat, one more thing I would mention it related to that, which is critically important to how we manage the company. When we do acquisitions, a big part of what we do is make sure that we align everybody's interests. So we use our stock in almost every acquisition that we do. Employees own roughly 30% of the Hilb Group. Our current private equity partner, the Carlyle Group, who came in a little less than 2 years ago in December 2019, owns the rest. But that equity ownership piece is critically important to the success of the organization because, one, it really creates an alignment of interest and makes everybody work together. So things like cross-selling and sharing clients and doing all the stuff that really matters. And it's something everybody, it's like second nature because we're all part of one team and we're all moving in one direction. And then the second piece is wealth creation, right? That equity piece continues to grow over time. And even though you sold your agency, you can make more money theoretically, down the road than you could when you first sold it. So putting all that together, that's also part of what we're looking for when we do acquisitions. We're looking for like-minded leaders who not only want to grow, but believe in that philosophy that we have in terms of using equity and having that be part of the transaction.
That's a really good point. And when we talk about employees, let's just say there is an employee that's joining, one of the 120 firms that you've acquired over the last few years. Is there any advice you'd have for that employee that's starting out and looking to, let's just say they're brand new to insurance? What advice would you give that employee that's just joining a part of the Hilb Group?
Yeah, it's another good question. I would say a few things. Number one, I would tell them, soak everything up every single day that you're in the office or we're working remotely or on a Zoom call or meeting with a client. Back to my career on Wall Street, I was fortunate that I also had a couple of mentors who I wouldn't say took me under their wing, but certainly they were people I looked up to and I saw how they behaved and how they carried themselves and how they dealt with clients and how they dealt with boardrooms. You learn a lot. So if you're new to an organization, I would tell you, first thing you should do is make sure you introduce yourself to everyone, meet as many people as you can, and look and see how they operate. See if there's a really successful producer in that office, why is he or she that successful? Ask them, sit down with them. And, I've always found in my life, in my career that people are always willing to talk when you're asking them questions about themselves. It's very easy, right? Mm-hmm. You go up to somebody and say, why are you so successful? They can talk for probably hours about it because it's, a topic they know well and it's personal. I would then say, if you're part of the Hilb Group, meet other people outside of your office. One of the benefits of being part of an organization like ourselves is we have people all over the country, all with different level of expertise that you, again, can talk to and gather information about and learn about and try to incorporate all that into what you do to make you a better broker, CSR, account exec, whatever it may be. It's not really rocket science. Insurance is a great business. It's an underappreciated business in my point of view.
It truly is.
People just don't think of it, hey, I always want to go into insurance, but we do tremendously great things as an industry that I think often get overlooked, right? In terms of helping you manage your risk as an individual, helping you manage your risk as a business, putting in place safety protocols that never existed before, dealing with everything that's cutting edge in the world, things like climate change and nanotechnology and cybersecurity, as you know quite well. And, you have the opportunity in this industry to see just about everything. And there's so many different things you can do, right? There's the technology side, there's the sales side, there's the finance side, there's the product side, there's the underwriting side. There's so many different things you can do and have not just a long career, but a very rewarding career. I just don't know how you get out and make people understand that when they're coming out of college or coming out of business school, because it's not the first thing people think about.
Ricky, now that you are the CEO of the Hilb Group, are there any strategies that help you go about your day-to-day routine in terms of daily effectiveness? Is there any way that you think about your day-to-day to be the most productive that you can be for Hilb?
Yeah, I mean, there are a few things. I mean, technology makes life a lot easier now, right? The fact that I can reach so many more people on Zoom or Microsoft Teams, you need to rethink the way you run a business now, right? I don't have to be there in person, although I love to be there in person. I can still get the message out and reach people using technology. So that's one way to make yourself efficient. Another is just sheer productivity. A lot of people get bogged down on little details. I prefer to get things done. So, I mentioned earlier that, my senior thesis in college on the economics of racial discrimination in professional basketball, I actually handed that in almost 2 months early so that I can actually play. I wanted to play golf for those 2 months at the golf course on campus. So you need to learn how to be efficient and productive. And there's plenty of time in the day to get just about everything done that you need to do. And then, there's also in terms of how you can be more efficient. If you have a singular message or strategy that everybody understands, it makes it a lot easier. So you're not spending all day dealing with little problems or questions about, well, why are we doing this? Why are we doing that? If you're very clear about what we're trying to accomplish and why we're doing certain things, you eliminate some of that noise that could slow you down in the course of a day.
Do you have any daily habits or routines that you make sure you're doing every day?
Other than drinking multiple double espressos and working out every morning, nothing more than that.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Are there any books that you've read that have really helped you shape your leadership style or your approach to running such a large organization?
It's funny you should ask that question because just last week, we put in place right before the pandemic a leadership development program in conjunction with the Mason School of Business at the College of William and Mary in Virginia. And literally 4 days before the world shut down on March 11th is when we kicked off the program in person in March of 2020. But our first class of graduates, which is about a dozen of our future leaders, who, we wanted to put them through this program for 12 months. It became, 18 months because of COVID, but they graduated last week. And I went down to Richmond and actually gave them a book as part of graduation. And the book that I gave them was Good to Great by Jim Collins.
Classic.
It's an oldie, but a goodie. And one of my favorite expressions, which I say all the time, and I actually sign off on all my internal communications with, is dare to be great. And what I mean by that is, life is too short to be mediocre, and for the same nickel, why don't you try to be extraordinary? And that is how we manage our company, and that is what we are trying to do. And the book Good to Great, although unfortunately, a number of the quote great companies have since gone bankrupt, so maybe the methodology wasn't perfect, but it does tell you that how did some companies outperform others over a long period of time, and that's what we're trying to do at the Hilb Group.
That's a great message for all the Hilb employees, and for all the Hilb employees out there and the folks that will join Hilb in the future. How do you envision the future for the Hilb Group?
We're going to continue to do what we do well. We're going to continue to grow. We're going to continue to do acquisitions that meet our criteria and fit our strategic box. We're going to continue, more importantly, to invest in our business and invest in our people. We have made significant investments over the last couple of years in resources, in technology, and other areas in order to, we like to say, lay a foundation to help our future growth. We are currently, we've quadrupled in size since I got there. So when I started in September 17, we were about 105 to 110 million in revenue. We're going to finish this year north of 450 million in revenue. We have a short-term strategic plan to get to $500 million in revenue by next year, which we will get there way sooner than the end of next year. And then the next stop from there is going to be $1 billion in revenue. And we're going to continue to grow the business by doing the right acquisitions, hiring the right people, and investing in training and development and technology so that we can be as efficient as we can be. But also we want to create an environment where people are having fun. I'm having the most fun I've had in almost 35 years of working. For the reasons we talked about earlier about, there's actually tangible evidence that the strategy is working and that I'm having an impact and that my team is having an impact. And, that's incredibly satisfying.
The stats don't lie. Congrats, Ricky, on the tremendous growth and success and all the success that you've had in your career. Are there any final messages that you'd like to get out there to the audience of insurance professionals that could be listening to this? Whether or folks that maybe aren't even in the industry that are considering taking a job in the insurance world. Any final messages you want to get out there?
Yeah, I guess two. One is, it's a great industry. And I touched on that earlier, but, tell your friends, tell everybody, because, one of the issues we have as a collective, as an industry, both on the distribution side and the underwriting side is, we need more young people in the business. And so, it is a terrific business. Make sure that, whatever you end up doing in your career and whether or not you go into the insurance industry or not, you got to have fun and you got to enjoy it. Mm-hmm. If you're miserable, it shows, and you're not going to be successful. You're not going to have a great career. So, I am living proof that careers don't necessarily go in a straight line. I went from law school to Wall Street to the underwriting side to insurance distribution. And if you had asked me, at the start of my career, what was I going to be doing in 35 years? I don't think I would have said I was going to be the CEO of the Hilb Group. So
that's pretty cool to hear. That's pretty cool to hear.
Thank you.
I got to agree with you as well, Ricky, on that. I was just interviewed on Resource Pros podcast, and they asked what do you think the insurance industry should be doing to be a little bit more disruptive? And I was like, I think one of the best things that we can do is market ourselves a little bit better to the folks that are not in the insurance industry or the younger folks that are considering getting in, because the perceptions of a lot of the folks that we hire or the kids just out of school are not even close to really what they truly would experience if they're working in the insurance industry.
Absolutely. And look, the industry is changing, right? Mm-hmm. We are being disrupted. There is, this tremendous amount of technology, and it's a good thing, mm-hmm. right? If you can become more efficient, if you can use things like drones to take a look at property damage so you're not putting people in harm's way, mm-hmm. If you can use artificial intelligence or robotic process automation and all that stuff, why not? You have to be able to adapt and change. The world is going to change. And if you're standing still, you're going to be left behind.
Is there one thing you'd point to in terms of disruption that you think could take effect on the day-to-day of a retail broker? Is there one, like the next thing that's coming that might disrupt how a retail broker does their job? Is there one thing you'd point to that's clear?
It's hard. It's hard to say one thing. I think just in general, any technology that improves the customer experience is going to be beneficial long-term, I think, to both an individual agency, a company like ourselves, and the industry. Mm-hmm. There's one thing that I think we are seeing in the world today. People are used to doing everything online. They're used to having things, almost immediate gratification. And, the insurance industry historically has always been a pen and paper, drag things out, not necessarily with clear reasons why, one risk was written or another risk wasn't. But I think with technology, if you can improve the customer experience, and it will go a long way to improving the industry longer term. And I think that is where we certainly as an organization are focusing most of our energy and attention as we think about technology in the future.
Mm-hmm. Ricky, thank you again for taking me through your background, your story, your thoughts on Hilb, the future of Hilb. And I'd like to jump into our final section here, which is 5 rapid fire questions that you can answer as short or as long as you want. There's some fun ones thrown in there. If you are ready, I'll fire away.
Go ahead.
What is the fondest memory that you look back on at your time at Princeton?
Fondest memory was the friends I met, and you know, the people, the relationships you develop. And you know, I graduated 35 years ago, and you know, some of those people I'm still very, very close to. So it's those memories and those relationships.
What is your favorite restaurant in New York City?
Wow, that's a good one. Avra Madison on 60th Street.
What's it called?
Avra Madison.
Madison, okay.
It is a Greek Mediterranean restaurant on East 60th Street. I think it's right between Madison and 5th. I've been there 3 times in the last month, and it's a place where I often go with my family and my kids, and we have a great time.
And Ricky, are you Greek?
I am not Greek. My last name sounds Greek, but I am not.
Okay, cool. Would you rather be a CEO or a CFO?
Oh, CEO.
How come?
That one's easy. I don't think I even have to give an explanation for that one.
I get it.
I was also probably the only CFO of a $25 to $30 billion publicly traded financial institution that has never taken an accounting class in his life.
Very impressive.
There you go. I was what you call a strategic CFO.
Love it. I think that's what I would probably be if I was in that role. Okay, what is your favorite movie of all time?
Animal House.
Awesome.
Or Caddyshack.
Okay.
I have very lowbrow humor that I get excited about.
Yeah, that's great. And then final question, what are you most excited for in 2022?
I'm most excited about seeing our company continue to grow. You know, we have executed on our strategy every step of the way over the last 4 years, and we're going to continue to do that. And you know, it's gratifying to see our 1,600 employees pulling in the same direction. And you know, it's going to be fun to be double our size again in the next couple of years and on our way to $1 billion.
Ricky, thank you so much for taking the time today. I know you are very, very busy, and I think people will learn a lot from your story, what it took to scale, what it took to get to the leadership positions that you were in, and how you see Hilb today. And because I know there's going to be a lot more folks that are going to be part of Hilb in the future. So I will say, next time you are in San Francisco, the double espressos are on me. And I'm really looking forward to travel opening up even more than it already is, because I feel like it's, you know, obviously the pandemic has had a big effect on everything that we're doing, but, you know, I haven't been out to New York in a long time. So I would love to catch up in person. And if there's anything you ever need, please do not hesitate to reach out.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me. And I will definitely take you up on that offer for double espressos.
Love it. All right, Ricky.
Take care.
Have a good one. This episode of the podcast is sponsored by Varuna. Varuna is the agency management system of the future, built on the #1 customer relationship management tool in the world, Salesforce. Varuna allows you to customize your system, workflows, reports, and dashboards in minutes, and allows you to gain actionable insights about your business in real time, letting you use this intelligence to grow your business in multiples. Varuna allows you to know your business so that you can grow your business. Please visit varuna.com to learn more.